Osmonth, this wine tastes the same as I remember. And like aged wine, Zhongli has aged quite well. With so many characters not having interruption resistance built into their kit, he finds a way onto their teams. But in Genshin, the best defense is a great offense, so is his presence really required? Let's explore Zhongli as a character and see if he lives up to his name. Zhongli is without a doubt the best shielder in the game. His shield gives 20% resistance shred to every element, so he will be somewhat useful in any team that you throw him on. For teams with Animo, Dendro, and Geo, where you don't swirl with Viridescent to reduce the resistance shred, he will be even more optimal. The downside to his elemental shield is his flimsy, long schlong Pillarman dongs. As a Geo construct, we all know that they can break easily. It is good for blocking projectiles, but when's the last time that you actually used it to block a projectile? Maybe in the future. The true disappointment here is the short range of his elemental skill. If you stay next to the pillar, then that's fine. You will contribute energy and do small amounts of damage. However, that is rarely the case at C0 specifically. At C0, you will pretty much never use the tap version of a skill, so once you place that pillar, it's pretty much set there until it's destroyed or the duration runs out, and it can last quite a while actually. If you recast his shield, it will not respawn in front of you 90% of the time, but instead will stay right where it's at. So if the enemy moves away from the pillar, you will lose all benefits of having it. Despite that, most Zhongli teams don't even consider the pillar to be a fundamental part of his gameplay. It can hinder reactions for certain teams and sometimes be in the way, but it's fine for the most part. Now, Zhongli's burst is actually pretty good. Depending on how you build him though, it can be a DPS loss if you build him with pure HP. The damage is not really worth it in that case, with the long animation times, but the petrification can still be useful when you're setting up buffs. If you build him for DPS, using a Geo Damage Goblet and a spear like Staff of Homa, then his meteor can easily dish out between 50 and 100k damage depending on how much investment you have. It's still not the best, but it can be useful to DPS to finish off some enemies as well as the added benefits of petrification. In addition, it's great when you need to bait out an enemy attack animations to avoid damage. As for Zhongli's Constellation, I had access to someone with C6 Zhongli and got to play around with him, and I got her opinion on it. Zhongli's C1 is useless by itself, but its full potential is unlocked with C2. With his C2, his burst gives the same shield as his elemental skill, so if you can keep his burst up, you will never have to use the hold version of his skill. This increases his damage with his skill and doubles the energy generation of those pillars. It also makes his skill much more reliable, and he can throw out that skill every 4 seconds. His C4 makes his petrification really ridiculous. Observe. Wow. How long until they actually start moving? Okay. Still there. Oh, there we go. Now, his C6 is really good, as it makes him function as a healer with his team. You can already run Zhongli without healers, but this makes him even better. If you're a true Zhongli simp, it is a good constellation. While none of his constellations are required, you should only be aiming for them if you really love Zhongli, or maybe just want to grab a couple Zhonglis per rerun. But don't put any constellations on him otherwise. But, as a Zhongli main said, and I quote, "If you don't at least have C2 Zhongli, do you even really have him? Think about it." Monaco emoji face. All in all, Zhongli is a great unit, and in my opinion, I think he should be on everyone's account. With more characters being released without interruption resistance, who require normal attack strings, he will find a place on those teams. Yoimiya, Wanderer, Linny, Sino, Ito, Ganyu, Hu Tao, and even new characters really want Zhongli. With the 2 new units being released, New Villette and Rithizli, he will also be liked on these teams. It can be argued that he is a staple and requirement for Xiao, and a few other teams. His utility is the best part of his kit. As far as his weapons, his signature weapon is an easy skip. Do not invest in it, it doesn't exist. Not even his best in slot, just forget about it. But if you do happen to get it, it will work just fine. It's just that there are other better options for him. The Staff of Homa is his best weapon for damage, and that's what I use. However, the Black Tassel is absolutely great on him because it has a nice HP bonus and is a 3-star weapon. You should have at least 15 of these at R5 by now. The new HP Spear from Fontaine, Rightful Reward, is a decent option, but I wouldn't recommend it over Black Tassel. It does have more damage, and the passive is at least usable, but it's not great. The HP percent is very low, so I would not recommend it over Black Tassel. As far as his artifacts, he has a few choices. Either 2 of the 2-piece HP sets, which is what I have converted to, or you can use Tenacity. At C0, you will want his pillars to hit and have uptime on the buff with Tenacity. So sometimes you'll see that it won't work, especially if the bosses tend to destroy his pillars, but it's still a good choice overall. You can also make use of Archaic Petra, but I don't like the functionality of that set, so that's a pass for me. Although the 2-piece set does give you some extra geo damage. Do I think he's worth it? Yes, absolutely. But is he a requirement? That's debatable. It depends on the team that you like using. Of the characters that I mentioned in this video, if you use any of them extensively, then you should get him. He is an Archon after all, and you want to keep sipping that osmanthus wine, then taste the flavor of Zhongli. If you want to see Zhongli really put the other Archons in their place, check out this video here. Until next time, Enigma out.